it's Jen Maleka, your functional diagnostic health practitioner and expert. And this week, I want to talk to you about the #1 problem with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Now, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, is a hormonal disorder common among women of reproductive age. Women with PCOS may have infrequent or prolonged menstrual periods or excess male hormone known as androgen levels. And that is a quote directly from the Mayo Clinic. Now that sounds like almost every woman I have ever known. How many women do you currently know or have you known who have suffered from hormonal disorders or long and painful periods during their reproductive years? Too many for it to be ignored, I'm sure. PCOS is one of the most commonly diagnosed conditions for women between the ages of 15 to 49. Some studies show that up to 15% of women are diagnosed with PCOS during their routine gynecology visits. But just because it's common doesn't actually mean that it's normal. So why is PCOS so prevalent these days? I mean, we have to ask this question. So to explore this more, let's take a look at what PCOS actually is and how it happens. Now, according to the Mayo Clinic, PCOS is when the ovaries may develop numerous small collections of fluid, follicules, and fail to regularly release eggs. Early diagnosis and treatment along with weight loss may reduce the risk of long-term complications such as type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Now, some of the classic symptoms of PCOS can include infrequent, irregular, or long periods, excess facial and or body hair growth, high blood sugar or insulin resistance, hair loss, and acne. However, those symptoms can also correlate with high or low estrogen or progesterone, hyper or hypothyroidism, autoimmune conditions such as Hashimoto's or alopecia, nutrient deficiencies, a congested liver, carbohydrate intolerance or a high carbohydrate diet, too much sugar, food sensitivities, and the list can go on and on and on. And all of which, left unaddressed, lead to an influx in inflammation, deeper metabolic dysfunction, and can trigger issues with the ovaries themselves. Now, the most accurate way to diagnose PCOS is with a vaginal ultrasound to see if the ovaries have been enlarged, if they have follicles, and are failing to function themselves. So really, the #1 problem with PCOS is that it's preventable or irreversible, but nobody is talking about that. Regardless of how PCOS is diagnosed, whether it's from a cluster of symptoms or an ultrasound the reality is that it's a lifestyle disease, meaning that lifestyle factors such as diet, sleep, exercise, stress, and toxin exposures are the driving factors that cause PCOS to happen. So this week, I want to uncover some of those lifestyle factors that can lead to or contribute to PCOS and how you can then prevent or reverse it by changing some of the things that are in your lifestyle. And if this isn't for you, then it's definitely to share it with the women in your life. Now, all of us have a genetic predisposition to certain disease states. Some of us reach disease states early in life, others later in life, and others never at all. So what is the deciding factor on how when we get to a disease state? Basically, your lifestyle, the food you eat, your sleeping habits, the way you exercise, how you handle stress, and the toxins you're exposed to all have an effect on your genetic code and the signaling that happens. Your body can handle unhealthy indulgences from time to time, crappy sleep occasionally, ebbs and flows in your exercise routine, a little toxin exposure here and there, and even the daily stress of life. But when all of that becomes more routine, more consistent, and chronic, eventually the compiling factors cause the circuits in the body to break in a sense, triggering genetic expression, metabolic dysfunction, and ultimately a disease state. Now, symptoms are the last thing to show up when metabolic dysfunction is in place. So PCOS is a cluster of symptoms used to diagnose women once metabolic dysfunction has already basically been in place for a while. Now, the four biggest driving factors of PCOS are a diet too high in sugar and or carbohydrates, prolonged periods of mental emotional stress, staying up late or getting broken sleep, consistent exposures to toxins known as endocrine disruptors. Now, while these factors might seem unrelated, they all have something in common. They directly impact insulin levels, cortisol hormone balance, and ultimately all of that is going to fuel inflammation. Now, the good news is that the body is very resilient, and in most cases, metabolic dysfunction is reversible given the right diet and lifestyle changes and tools. So when it comes to PCOS, I see so many women feeling doomed by their diagnosis, limited, and at a loss for getting back to feeling like themselves because nobody is talking about how they can take back control of their health and body by making some basic lifestyle changes. So the four biggest lifestyle shifts a woman can make to prevent or possibly reverse PCOS are: 1, eating a diet lower in sugar and carbs and higher in healthy fats and proteins, ideally all organic and well raised; being asleep by 10 p.m. and sleeping through the night the majority of the week; establishing a daily ritual to release stress using deep breathing or meditation; and creating a low or toxin-free home and work environment. Now, these four shifts will ultimately reduce inflammation, balance blood sugar levels and insulin levels, stabilize cortisol hormone rhythms, minimize external and internal impacts on estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, and ultimately lower the load on the body, allowing normal metabolic function and hormonal balance to return. So let's start a conversation about how to prevent or even reverse disease states such as PCOS instead of settling for a diagnosis, and then it won't be as much of a problem anymore. Now, I help health-minded people just like you get their hands on the right lab tests and resources so that you can prevent or reverse conditions such as PCOS and live your fullest life. If you want to explore the possibilities of being able to feel like yourself again, or for the very first time, then I want to invite you to schedule a complimentary Ideal Health and Weight Discovery session with me by clicking on the links below. I hope you found this super helpful on how much of your lifestyle can impact your current health and what things that you can do about it, whether it's something like PCOS that you're struggling with or another type of health condition. All right, that's it. I'll see you next week on the blog.